How they knew what we must know without knowing a page of it themselves. All these things, poet is talking about a warlike situation. She is giving an imagery of their life. Their children need education in order to become powerful people in future and lead a happy life. A woman-centric writer, she talks about the life of African American culture. Hello students, I am Anil, Assistant Professor of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. In this session, we are going to look at a poetry titled Woman by Alice Walker for the students of BCA first semester. Before we get into the poetry, let us know something about Alice Walker. Alice Walker is an American writer whose novels, short stories and poems are noted for their insightful treatment of African American culture. Her novels, most notably The Color Purple, focus particularly on women. She is a woman-centric writer. She talks about the life of African American culture. So in this poem, what is there? Let us look at it. This poem is written in free verse. The poem starts like this. They were women then, my mama's generation, husky of voice, stout of step, with fists as well as hands, how they battered down doors and ironed starched white shirts, how they led armies, head-dragged generals across mined fields, booby-trapped ditches, to discover books, desks, a place for us, how they knew what we must know without knowing a page of it themselves. Poetry ends here. And what is there inside this poetry if you understood it? They were women, my mama's generation. Poet is talking about her mama's generation and he is talking about particularly women. Husky of voice, stout of step. Husky of voice, that means their voice was muffled, very hard to hear. Stout of step, those steps were heavy. With fists as well as hands, how they battered down doors. They broke open the doors with their hands. So why did they do that? And ironed starched white shirts. These black African American women were particularly slaves. They were maids in the houses of white folk. So they did all these things. They worked for them. And they looked like this. And this poet is talking about her mama's generation. Not her generation, but her mama's generation. How they led armies. Now after that, those women become rebels. What kind of rebellion that they did? What did they rebel? Why did they rebel? So, how they led armies, head-dragged generals across mined fields, booby-trapped ditches. All these things, poet is talking about a warlike situation. She is giving an imagery of their life. She compares their life to a situation of war. So, they had all these obstacles. They had mined fields, there were booby traps, there were ditches. They had to cross all these things. Why? What is the need for them to do this? That is the question posed in this poetry. And she will answer it in the next few lines. They were like generals and they fought very bravely, facing all the problems. Alice Walker is comparing their life was like war. Why did they do all those things? Why did they struggle? Why did they rebel? The answer is here, to discover books. So what does book stand for? Book stands for knowledge. Knowledge stands for power. So here, those women of that generation, they struggled, they fought. They did everything to discover books, desks. These desks are places where people learn knowledge and a safe place, a place for us. What is this us? The poet's generation. For their next generation, for their kids, for their children, they did everything. How they knew what we must know. And there is a surprising question for the poet. How did they know what we wanted? What they wanted for their future without knowing a page of it themselves? The poet highlights that they did not get education, they did not have any voting rights, they were not treated like human beings. With all these obstacles, with all these hindering problems, these women found books. Those books represented power. So how did these women who never went to school, who did not study, but they understood education was all powerful? So this is a surprising question for Alice Walker. She says, how did that generation know what is good for us without reading a page of it themselves? They never read, they never studied, they never got formal education, but they knew the power of education. And for that, they sacrificed their lives. They faced many problems in their lives to give a good future to their children. And she is praising the woman of that generation, her mama's generation. So this poem is feministic in nature, and it talks about rights for women, and it also talks about the power of education and the strength it has to change the lives of people. And she appreciates the efforts of her mama's generation, who understood that their children need education in order to become powerful people in future and lead a happy life. To summarize this poetry, Woman by Alice Walker is a short free verse poem. It's a free verse poem. There is no comma, there is no full stop. The poem starts and in the end there is a full stop. If you reframe it, the entire poetry becomes one single sentence. So it's a free verse poem telling of the fight women put up so girls could have access to education. So she is talking about girls' empowerment of women. So they fought to make their children, particularly girl children, powerful, strong, happy, and secured in life. Specifically, the poem lauds, especially African American women. It is talking about African American women who were slaves in America. Using military diction, we have seen in the poetry that she compares their struggle, their fight, to that of a war scenario. She uses military diction and imagery. Walker describes how these women's resilience and sacrifice enabled the poets to achieve their goal. With women, the poet promotes womanism, a form of feminism, recognizing and appreciating the struggles of black women. What is feminism? Feminism is a concept where it talks about equal rights for both men and women in the society. They are equal in everything. So this entire poetry talks about womanism, which is a form of feminism. So therefore, she appreciates, she feels happy, she feels surprised at the same time that how did those women knew what was good for their generation. We shall meet in the next class. Thank you.